Welcome to the Homestead and Outdoors podcast. You are listening to episode 6 of a series called The Story of This Hunt. So today it's rainy outside, finally a rain day. I don't know, sometimes work gets busy and rain days are kind of in the way, but as far as today, I had a bunch of things to get done. One of them was get another one of these stories out there, and the other was, I have a few things that people sent me that I was supposed to review and it hasn't been getting done, so we're going to do that today too. But yeah, it's October 16th and youth season's gone. Didn't shoot anything there. Jordan's still waiting. Early muzzleloader just opened, so we were out doing that and had a couple pretty good encounters with some decent bucks. Nothing that we really wanted to shoot, but there was one heavy 8-point that came out. There was a combine going and he ran out in front of us and we couldn't shoot him, or I could film him just fine. He could see his head and stuff, but there was a little bank in the way and he didn't get a shot. So that one probably would have got shot that evening. And we just realized that we were watching him the last 3 evenings now, I think, that we've been out. We've seen the same deer, and he finally came close enough. He was out at 900 yards the last time, and finally came close enough last night that I realized it's the same deer. And I think we're gonna go after him. Jordan had a specific deer that he was after, but it's getting to the point where he wants to shoot something either way. And like I had told him, I don't know if I ever shared this before, but I told him if he wants to hunt deer when he's 6 or 7, we're going to go after a couple of these bigger deer out in the beans early, especially if I have to go with him all the time. And then when he gets old enough where he can, at least carry the gun himself, he can shoot whatever he wants again. But we're after a few of these deer. And then like last year, he shot a nice one, just a nice 8-point, nothing we were after or anything, just happened to come by. And I think we're getting to the point this year that the same thing's going to happen again. But anyway, I've been out a handful of times, probably not even 3 times, 2 times, maybe 3 out here. And I had my one target buck showing up that first cold front that we got start of October. And he was rolling through, but no daylight pictures, just, hour after dark. And I took a crack at him, in the stands. And had a doe come in that I wanted to shoot. Walked right underneath my tree stand. Never got a shot, especially not with the camera and everything lined up. So we let her walk. And so I guess so far, I got a groundhog. So 35-yard shot on a groundhog, which cost me a little bit because the arrow stayed in her and she ran for her hole and right down the hole. It was a perfect shot. I have it on film, but she ran down the hole and drug my arrow right with it. So full brand new arrow. Didn't have a broadhead on it, which I should have, but field tips usually work just fine. But I probably should have, shot her in the head or something. But anyway, ran down the hole with the arrow and everything. So we had that issue with that groundhog for a while now. She was eating more food plot than the deer were. So when I did get the opportunity, I send an arrow that way. But I'm just trying to think what else we got going around here. I guess I'll just say, if you haven't, go back and watch the previous 5 episodes. These are just stories of different hunts I did, bucks that I shot. I have over, somewhere around 20 that I'm probably going to share over the years here, or whenever I get it done. I had a big gap there that I didn't put any on, but now this is the second one this year, so we'll keep it rolling. There's a couple big bucks up here on the wall that have some pretty good stories, so the stories will just get better as I keep going. The deer that we're going to be sharing tonight would have been one I shot, probably only the 3rd buck that I shot with my bow. So that was one of those deals, even though this one was probably one of the one of the ones that I was a little more confident in, you know, how it all played out. There was a kind of a strategy behind it to how I got him. But so anyway, let's grab this deer and check it out, and I'll look how much of the story I can remember after all these years. So this deer here is actually kind of cool. It has double split G2s, almost looks like a mule deer. Nice long brow tines, they kind of stand out at the ends. But yeah, I guess just pretty much a mainframe 8-point with a tiny little crab claw at the end here. But he had an inside point here, the way it looks, that broke off, that I don't know what looked like. But anyway, nothing huge. I don't know, you know, how wide he is. Maybe only 15 inches or something. It was like the third buck I shot in archery. But the story on this deer was, I was hunting so I climbed up in the crotch of a big oak tree, and let me think here. So I could just so get up in the crotch there, then I just stand up there, probably 8-9 feet off the ground, and there was a little creek there with a big deep deer trail in it, and there was a bigger creek, like this would have been a little waterway or whatever, or a little, I don't know, towel line probably running off of a field. And then there was the actual creek about probably 40 yards to the creek. So this gap in between that I was watching, this trail, the deer would kind of funnel through there. And anyway, there was the first cold day of the year, so I sat out there in the evening, fairly early. I was out there, and I don't know, this thing stood up, man, it must have been, you know, 4 o'clock. It was really early, and started working his way my way, and I just like thought, man, this thing's big coming through. And let me think. I guess he just pretty much moseyed around there for a while, and then after a while he started coming my way, but I seen he was on the wrong trail. Like he was down at the, you know. Oh, now I remember what the deal was. I was actually not in that oak tree that day. I was in a tree just a little bit farther back. So that's why he came through that pinch, but I was too far away from the pinch to actually shoot him. So he came through there at 50 yards probably, and I tell you what, I grunted at him. He wouldn't look. Then I had rattling antlers along at the time. Grabbed those as a last ditch effort and just, you know, clattered those together. He was 50 yards just walking straight, just one beeline, steady walk. And he never stopped to look, nothing. So I grunted even more, and I was, at that point, I was like, oh, well, he's not coming in or running away, so I might as well look if he's deaf or what. And he just kept walking, and he walked straight out of my life. Anyway, he, just kept walking. And so I was like, well, I don't know what else I could have done there, other than being a little closer to the trail that I knew was there. So the tree stand that I was in that night was made for kind of the deer that were bedded up, you know, to my left here, up there coming down, and he came from, you know, more in front of me and worked all the way along the creek. And anyway, so the story on this buck, kind of the way I did end up getting him then, so the next day, I was going to be there early the next morning, but I didn't. I shot him in the evening then, so I'm not sure if I was there that morning. I can't remember that for sure, if I sat there that morning and then again in the evening, or how that all went. But so the next day I sat in this oak tree that I was talking about, just so I could get up in the crotch, and then I was, you know, standing sideways in that crotch, could just so draw my bow basically straight ahead, which that trail pinch point was all straight ahead of me. So anyway, I was up in this oak tree, and he came out of from the north. He was heading north that the evening before. He was heading north, and I just thought if I'd be there until he decides to come back down south, I'd probably get him. And I ended up being there when he came back down, and being the night before, he didn't hear a thing that I did. I thought the thing maybe can't hear very well or something. I had never, like, I think I could have jumped out of my tree stand and ran after him, and he wouldn't have ever turned. Or that's how I felt about it when he didn't even look at me after I made all that noise. But anyway, he came on the trail, and I had ranged the trail before. It was 27 yards to that trail, and I was just sitting there waiting, like, man, he should be coming back sometime. And it started getting, later in the evening, and all of a sudden there he was. He was, coming right down that trail. And I remember thinking he's not gonna stop. If I do the meh at him, he's not gonna stop. And because I thought he couldn't hear me, and just all that playing in the back of my mind kind of made me, I basically yelled at the deer. And he could definitely hear that time. He almost jumped out of his skin. And he jumped kind of and stood there, and all that made me shoot way too quick. And I shot him pretty high. Let me see, it was high and back. Up along the back, probably, from up and down the vitals, I probably hit him a foot back and high, which another thing I should mention, I was only, 10 feet max up in the tree shooting this down a slope. Like, I would have been up on the hill kind of shooting down in the bottom. So I was above him pretty good, even though he was out at 27 yards. But I shot, and he turned straight away and ran right across the creek. And I was like, man, that was a terrible shot. And just like that, the blood started coming out. It just, just a fountain squirting straight out the back there, right where the arrow was. The arrow was still sticking out about, a foot and a half probably. And he ran, and I just thought, he's going to be, running a long ways until I seen that blood. But he ended up actually, I watched him tip over. He ran across the creek through the water, kind of a tractor crossing there, and he ran in there and just, tipped over on the other side. So I guess the lesson on this deer was more if you know where the main travel area is when you're putting up a stand, try and find that first and range it. Make sure you're in range from that trail. Because the first time I was at 50 yards and I wasn't comfortable shooting that far. If I would have just been 20 yards closer, would have been perfect. And maybe it was the wind and all that I couldn't put my tree stand there every time. But sometimes there's a reason for being farther back. You can't cover all the trails, obviously, or this would be very easy. But anyway, he came down that one trail, and the other lesson would have been, don't be afraid to move for the next evening or something. If he's there, he's using that trail, scoot up 20 yards the next time and set up there. That's one thing I like. I do a lot of saddle hunting now. I wish I would have had a saddle back then, but I used to climb up in the crotch of a tree. That I had to find a tree that I could climb into because I couldn't afford 10 tree stands for my 10 spots. Now it's even more than that. I have so many different spots, but I wear a saddle, and you can get up into most trees with that thing. The only thing that I like about trees for saddle is if they lean the correct way, that you're on the top side of the lean, so you're like this with the tree leaning that way, because if you're on the bottom, you're like hanging off of the thing. So if the tree leans totally the wrong way, you can't get your shot out this way. You're kind of hanging there upside down. You can shoot here, but not, you might get the idea there. But anyway, so this deer, being it came through there, then I moved, would have been something I learned from that. And the other thing was, when he came from the north, or let me see, he came from the south the first day. So let's say he's coming from the south, and then you set up for him, especially if it's the next morning, right away you know he went north. So there's a good chance through the night he could have come down, but if he didn't, there's a good chance if he's going to come back to bed the next morning or the next evening, he'll come back through there, heading the opposite direction. So the other thing was that this buck had me on was I tried to rattle at him, grunt at him, he didn't hear me, and the next evening he was totally different. Like maybe I should have rattled at him or something, he might have, come right in, but I can't remember if I would have every now and then I'd sit up there and maybe grunt a few times. I can't remember if I did that at all or not, but in that case I don't remember that I did. So he was just coming down that trail just naturally, and when he stopped, or he wasn't stopping, and I just thought, had in the back of my mind, this thing's deaf or something, and I yelled at him way too loud, and he could have took off and never got a shot. So that was kind of a lesson I learned, that they're just not in the mood sometimes. I just couldn't believe it. I guess he just thought, he could hear it, and he was just not interested. Probably if I would have made some weird noise, he would have stopped and looked at me at least. But that was the main thing I was trying to do, was get him to actually acknowledge that he heard it. But he never even, his ear never even turned. I was watching him, he just one steady pace. But anyway, yeah, for you guys that are listening in and not watching, he's just 20-inch deer maybe with his long tines. Actually it's an 8-point, so probably not even that. Never did score him, but third archery buck. I don't know, I have a paper, which I think I said this on most of these episodes, and if you haven't, go and watch those. But especially the first one I kind of talked about what I'm trying to do here and why I'm doing this. But what was I gonna say? Oh, I have a book that I write all my deer in that I shot. I think I shoot one more deer, I'll have 75 deer that I would have shot over the years since I think I started hunting in 2007. So I don't know how many years that is. I can't do math in my head very well. So this would have been the third archery buck or so. And that book that I have, I just write down, what is it? How many shots I took, like if I missed or if I hit, how many shots, what year, what I used to shoot it, and what it was. This would have been a 8-point mainframe 8 with split G2s, so a 10-point or whatever. But otherwise, I guess what I normally do on these podcasts at the end, I try and do a little bit of a devotional or some kind of a I don't know, a little bit of a life lesson or something. And I think today, what I was thinking about this week was something from church. On Sunday, we had our Sunday school lesson that we do. In the Bible, it says, your best friend is the one that lays down his life for you, or would, and like Jesus died for us. And anyway, so I was just thinking about that this week. How many times do we treat someone that we don't really know that well different than maybe the one that we do know well? Anyway, I'm gonna grab my book here. I have one of those books here that I can look at for a little bit of pointers. But I just thought that was, in a deer hunting world, that we do that a lot. Like you see on social media all the time, someone shoots a nice deer, and the next guy's like, oh, I should have given another year. Sometimes it's just kidding. Maybe it's even a buddy that knows the guy wasn't planning to shoot a deer that small and just got buck fever and the antlers look huge, or you never know what the guy's going through, and maybe he's just one of those people that don't care. They want to shoot a deer and they don't care about the antlers. I personally like to, reach for a higher goal, try and shoot something bigger, older. Sometimes they're unique. Sometimes there's a reason you shoot them, and sometimes it's just they got huge antlers and you want them on the wall. But anyway, I got this book here. I guess the title on that was Cultivating Noble Friendships. I should have looked what noble meant there, but it was basically the focus on there says to determine to bless others through wisdom, faithfulness, and love. But what I was trying to say was that the verse that says, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And it goes on to say that we tend to think that, that means to die for the other person, take a bullet for him, or, all that. But we can do that in real life while we both live. One of us doesn't have to die in order to help the other person. And I'm talking to myself here. Like every time I do these devotionals, sometimes it's my personal devotions I do here. And it's just extra for me. So don't feel like I'm, trying to point a finger at anyone. It's just, I really struggle with this actually in every aspect of life, even just here at home with my wife and children. Sometimes they want your attention and you already plan to, do a podcast or something that day, and it's hard to sometimes say, well, I know it's a rain day and I'm not at work, and I got limited time here and I got to do this and that, and you go do that because I can't, or normally there's ways out. If the house is burning down, you're gonna get out. It doesn't matter what you were doing. So if one of your kids needs you real bad, whether sometimes you gotta teach them that they can't just always be, you can't always just run every time they think they have something important. They also have to learn that. But what I was gonna say is about all this laying down your life or being nice to your neighbor or your friend or having time for them is, in the hunting world, we get caught up on, this is my buck, or this is my property, or I got permission here, and then someone else steps on it, and it can really start tearing you up after a while. I've had it happen 100 times where I'm hunting a spot, and then you think you have sole permission, and then the other guy goes and asks them. No offense to them, nothing wrong with that. They asked, and they're like, yeah, go ahead. And then, then they're hunting, and all of a sudden someone walks by, say a trail camera that you haven't been in there for all year because this big buck was in there, and you wanted to wait till the perfect time. Someone walks by and you're like, whoa, I thought this was, my property. And you tend to automatically think something bad about that person, or maybe not think something bad, but think that, I guess you just basically think like, well, where'd he come from? He doesn't have permission. And then if you go around and figure it out, then you find out that they actually had permission just like you did. It just happened to be that they didn't really think about it, that giving permission to two people might you might run into each other and ruin each other's hunts or something. But I do realize though that very many people do not realize how serious we take it, and I take it even more serious now because of, I don't want to spend all my time, money, efforts out there in the woods because it's not really the most important thing in the world. And so when I am out there, I don't want to waste my time on a property where 5 other people that got different goals than me are running through it already. I'd rather remove myself from that situation, let them have their fun and me mine, I guess. And I don't know, everyone has a different way of looking at it, but what I was gonna say is do we treat those people differently just because they shoot little bucks, or they shoot the deer before they get big, like you want to wait till they get big? Or do we just kindly let them have their space, and there's always more spots we can go to, But it is frustrating sometimes, especially now in Iowa here. Iowa's one of the best or the best state anymore for big deer, so private access and stuff is getting more and more hard to find, and then when you have it, you hate to lose it again. But if someone even property ownership or something switches and then someone else hunts it, and sometimes people can get pretty mean, and it's just, you just gotta kind of make sure you're not that guy, I guess. But what it said in here otherwise was, just encouraging someone. Maybe that would come back to where we would, someone shoots a deer and you congratulate them. It's funny how on social media someone can take a picture of a deer, put it on social media, and someone goes and says, oh, I wouldn't have shot that. And then the other way around, someone shoots a monster and he's like, oh, you can't eat the horns. And it doesn't really matter. Like, what's the difference between a big one or a small one when you can't eat the horns? Even though someone takes the time to take the picture and put it on social media, and from my experience, if you take the time to take a picture and put it on social media, you're kind of wanting other people to see it, or you think other people would enjoy to see it. Or whether you're lifting yourself up or however you're doing, you didn't do it for someone to tear you down, I'm sure. So I don't know, what the right or wrong way of doing it is. I just know that I think we could all, we think we'd take a bullet for a friend, but we can't talk nice to our neighbor sometimes. So I don't know. Like I said, this is all thoughts that I have, and they're all for myself. I guess if you want to use them, go ahead, but I'm going to be selfish with this one. Every time I have a good thought, I try to use it for myself rather than tell other people how to do it, because we can always improve ourselves too. But yeah, I just get a kick out of bringing these bucks back to life, and they're just stories that never would have got told other than to my children and grandchildren, and I have a YouTube platform, so I put them on here. So I think tonight we're going to go out after that buck. Probably the first night in 3 nights that we've been out there that he won't come out, because we actually want to shoot him now. If we get lucky, the one we're actually after over there will show up too. He's still there, he's just not being cooperative and coming out in front of us. We had him at 70 yards in the tall grass one time, and Jordan couldn't see it good enough to shoot, so he walked away. But I guess archery season is here. October 16th today, so we're just going up from here. Rut's gonna be coming up, and I guess thanks for watching. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.